and we are so lucky to have Sherry, senior crime scene investigator, telling us all about how she's applied modern techniques. Yeah, everybody's seen the show CSI Miami and CSI New York and CSI, and how those techniques are put to use to solve crimes, and how she has used those same techniques and applied them to the JFK assassination. And right now we're discussing the headshot and trajectory locations.
I'm going to have to tell you that in order to use the entire quadrant, if I use the entire quadrant as an entry and the bottom quadrant or the rear quadrant as an exit, it would require quite a bit of finesse in order for me to make you understand that over the radio.
Okay.
Because you're using trigonometry, you have to develop an angle that would encompass every possible trajectory. I do that in detail on my forensic DVD. But for our work tonight, I want everyone listening that is doing this with us to pick a point on their right front quadrant that they think is the point that the bullet entered the head. So just pick a point that you think, and you would draw a dot there.
Okay, I've got it right over JFK's right eye, just a little bit to the right.
Okay, that's a good place. Then I'm going to pick a point in the back that I think that it might have come out of. And you can just arbitrarily pick the place that you think most likely would represent that. And remember, we're just a two-dimensional world here, so it's not really going to matter if you're thinking higher on the head or lower or whatever.
Again, the way I've marked it is on the right, but further towards the side of the head. In other words, not lining up exactly with my X that I've marked over JFK's right eye.
Okay.
More to the right of that.
Then what we would do, the next step, is draw a line that would intersect those 2 points, okay? You now have a straight line trajectory, all right? So you've completed that first step. So you've got your trajectory. And you have to determine, do you think it came from the front or the back along that trajectory? Because, there's some people that are just entrenched in Oswald shot him. And you know what? If you are a believer that Oswald shot him and you do not believe that it came from the front, you can still do the trajectory analysis. It'll just be backwards, okay?
Okay.
So trajectory analysis is going to work regardless. You might be surprised that your shooter was not where you think he was, so, So you might have to give up that rear shooter. You might have to give that up. So most people do believe that the shooter was from the front, if nothing else, because of the direction that the president fell, going back and to the left. I mean, if you strike a golf ball, it's going to go in the continued direction of travel. And so that's what has happened here. So once you've determined that, then you want to determine the target position. So that means we've got to place JFK in Dealey Plaza. And before we put him in there, I mean, we can know where he is. If you have, you talked about Dealey Plaza looking like a 7, right?
Close enough for rock and roll, yeah.
It's close enough to rock and roll.
Yeah.
Like maybe an upside-down L. But let me just say, if you want to get a real good picture of what it looks like, if you draw a 7 with a straight line at the top, and then you know how some people make their curve go kind of down and to the left, it's kind of a fancy-looking 7, or they make a 2 that has like a swan's neck that kind of curves in. Well, Dealey Plaza actually has that 7 or that swan curving neck on the right. It has a straight line, street, and then if you would mirror that 7, so that 7 is going the other way, that's how Dealey Plaza looks. So
yeah,
you have
that's a better description than I gave, that's for sure. Thanks, Sherry. Okay.
So you would have like 2 swan necks that are, if you were looking at just the outside edges, it would be as if, when you make an hourglass,
that's
you
right.
shape an hourglass with your hands. If you took the top part of the hourglass, that is Dealey Plaza. Just draw a line in the center, and now you have the 3 streets of Dealey Plaza.
There you go.
And the little skinny net is where the triple underpass was.
I'm going to use that in the future. I hope you don't mind. I hope there's no copyright on that description.
You may borrow that.
Thank you very much.
When you talk about it, be sure that you talk about JFK Answer.
I will. I'm going to plug it every show this month.
Then on the left-hand side of that little hourglass, there was a pergola. It was like a little semicircle area that ran parallel to the curved area. And on the bottom edge of that was a raised concrete portion where Zapruder stood. If you look at a map of Dealey Plaza and they show that little pergola, if you go straight out into the street at a 90-degree angle to where Zapruder was standing, you find where people have painted onto the street where Kennedy was located at the time of the headshot.
Okay, I've made
so
my
that's
X.
how you place your head within the plaza. The question is, which way is he looking? Because remember when we first started the show, I said, I believe that he was shot from the right front. The question is, where is the right front?
Exactly. Very good, yes, yeah.
So we have to know where he was looking. Well, there have been two people that have really done a profound study on placing the president. One was Thomas Canning, and he was an engineer from NASA. He was on the Space Project Division of NASA, and he was the one responsible for reconstructing Kennedy's head position for the Warren Commission. What we were talking about is the orientation of President Kennedy's head within Dealey Plaza. Okay, so there are two people that did a study on this. One was Thomas Canning, who was with NASA, and the others was Dale Myers, and he did a computer recreation. And now Dale Myers is a person that believes that Oswald did this. But you know what? It's okay. His math is still good.
Okay.
So I'm going to, and the other thing is that it coincides with Thomas Canning. And everyone else that's ever looked at this comes back and says, yeah, these people knew what they were doing. So using these calculations, we can determine how his head was tilted down, how far away from Zapruder he was also turned, and what the angle of his head was side to side, or so you're looking at the pitch and the tilt and all of this stuff. And for our purposes, we don't need to worry about any of that except how was he looking? What direction was he looking?
Precisely, yeah.
And if you want to know the direction that he was looking, remember I said that we had like this little hourglass look. And on the right-hand side, we have the street that's coming down. And on the right outside edge, where the concrete of the street meets the grass and the overpass intersects the two, that is the point that JFK is looking. Okay?
Got you. So the opposite side of the Grassy Knoll. He's looking away from the Grassy Knoll.
He's looking away from the Grassy Knoll. Now, if you were in the limo, he would basically be looking out over the mirror that's found on the left-hand side of the vehicle or out over the left front wheel. He's looking out, not down the center of the limousine. He's looking off to the side, and because the limousine is in a curve, that even puts him more towards the other side.
Good.
So,
yes.
So you take your little head that you made, and remember I said when you first divided the head, I said draw an arrow. That would be the way that person would be facing.
That's right.
Line your head up so that your little head is in between those two positions.
I just did that. Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
So he's looking that way.
Okay.
Then actually he's looking a little further to the right, but I'm just going to use this as a point where people can visualize it in their mind.
That's perfect. That's fine. This is great.
It's just for visualization. And once you do that, then if you look at the line that you drew as a straight line trajectory,
that's right.
You can then see where you think the shooter was standing.
Oh my goodness me! Look at that, eh?
Okay. So now you can say, I think the shooter was standing in this area right here, in order to make the entry and exit wounds in the places that I believe. Now, here's the interesting part and really important part.
Okay.
It's not only what is possible, but what is impossible. So, if I want to come in at the right front, the most extreme angle that I can take without moving my little head and keeping that skull in the right position and not intersect the left-hand side of the head,
Mm-hmm.
that would be another straight line trajectory that I could draw on there. That angle that I just created, everything that's outside of that angle cannot be where the shooter was located.
That makes complete sense. Absolute complete sense. Mm-hmm.
So not only are you saying that the shooter is on the opposite side of DEALEY Plaza from Zapruder and the Grassy Knoll,
Mm-hmm.
but it was impossible for the shooter of the fatal headshot to be on the Grassy Knoll.
Wow.
It's mathematically impossible.
And it's funny, because the House Select Committee, folks, if you're not sure what the House Select Committee is, I'll do a quick Reader's Digest version of it. Towards the late 70s, there was such a ruckus about the JFK assassination, the Martin Luther King assassination, and the Bobby Kennedy assassination, and wrongdoings by the CIA that the American Congress got together and decided to have an investigation on all three assassinations. And indeed, for the JFK assassination, the end result was a probable conspiracy based on analysis of a soundtrack. I won't go into detail. They had a soundtrack of possible shots from DEALEY Plaza. And the result of that soundtrack was that there was indeed a shot from the Grassy Knoll, but it missed the limo. It coincides with what you were saying. I found that fascinating. Absolutely fascinating, that... first of all, that there was scientific proof that there was indeed a frontal shot, which blows me away because right away that's conspiracy.
Right.
I just get goosebumps thinking of that, and why would the government cover it up? We'll get into that after. But to think that all these years I believed it came from the Grassy Knoll, and it did not. It came from the opposite side of the Grassy Knoll where no one was looking.
Right.
Incredible work, Sherry.
Thank you.
You deserve a medal for this. This is incredible.
Well, I didn't get a medal, but I did get something. I have to tell you.
Please.
In 2003, at one of the JFK Lancer November in Dallas conferences, I was honored with the Mary Farrell JFK Lancer New Frontier Award in appreciation for my contributions to new evidence and furthering the study of the assassination. Thank you. Larry Hancock's also been awarded things, that same kind of thing, as many of the people, that are big researchers. And I am just honored to be with that group of people. They have put in so many more years than I have and really done a lot. They really have. But yes, this is, I think it's groundbreaking work. And, no one else has done this. And when I speak at the November in Dallas conference this year, I am going to talk about this analysis in detail, and I am going to do a little bit more than the presentations that I've done in the past, which I think I've only maybe done one on the trajectory, maybe two. I don't think so. I think just one. And I'm going to kind of clear up a few little things. There are some questions people have, like, well, would it get over the limo? And what about Jackie? Would it hit her? And, things like that. I'm going to address all of those things. So this coming conference is going to have new stuff. It's, I'm not just going to be saying the same thing that I've always said. And so if they're listening here and they think they're getting everything, they won't be.
I want to mention
there really are more things.
You're listening to Night Fright, Wednesdays from 3 to 5 in the afternoon and from 10 until midnight at night. Your voice in the dark for paranormal and conspiracy radio. And now your host, Brent Holland.
I want to mention your DVD, which is for sale at jfklancer.com, www.jfklancer.com. And all the information, folks, if you want to go to this conference, I highly recommend it. You will learn a lot more about the conspiracy. You're going to meet some great people, and there's going to be a great memorial going on. It's 45 years since...
what is wonderful about going to the conferences is that you not only get to meet people like Larry Hancock and William Law, and myself, and you get to talk to us one-on-one and ask us questions and, have books signed and that type of thing. But there are also some very important people there that the opportunity to meet is dwindling fast. People like Ed Hoffman,
good point,
the deaf mute that saw a shooter from the Grassy Knoll. He saw that person. He saw what they did with the rifle. And there was always a problem because for him, American Sign Language is his language. English is a second language.
That's right.
And he does not, he was not taught English. He picked up a little bit along the way. But he has found a wonderful interpreter and two people that are researchers and actually high school, one of them is a high school teacher, that have helped him write a book that is coming out this November. And he's going to be at the conference,
wow.
And his story is going to be told in full with detail for the very first time. Another person that's going to be there that is not going to be available forever is someone like Aubrey Reich. Aubrey Reich is the ambulance driver who was in the room with Jackie Kennedy when she came in, when the president was deceased, and tried to put her wedding ring on his hand. Mm-hmm. He is the person that put the president in the coffin. Mm-hmm. So he has a very unique story to tell. And people like the Mr. and Mrs. Bill Newman, who were right there when it happened, and Beverly Oliver, who they call the Babushka lady that was in DEALEY Plaza. Mm-hmm. All of these people have such an experience to share, and they're at the conference and available for people to just speak with. They make themselves just available to anyone that wants to take a photograph or get their autograph and ask them for some personal related incidences. So it really is a fine conference, not only on the educational level, but it is enriching on a personal level.
It really is. And folks, if you were listening this afternoon, you do know that we had mentioned Aubrey Reich. I was speaking with Larry Hancock about it, to the fact that Aubrey Reich's ambulance company had received a plethora of phone calls in the few days prior to the assassination, and we were discussing the fact that it looked like somebody was timing the arrival of the ambulances to the scene, and just several minutes before JFK's motorcade was to arrive, indeed there was another emergency call calling Aubrey Reich's ambulance to the scene to pick up an epileptic. What people don't realize is that was precisely at the time when JFK's motorcade was to pass by that area. JFK's motorcade had been held up, time constraints. There was just larger crowds than people anticipated, and the motorcade was 5 minutes late exactly. So Hugh will be telling all these personal live stories, and these are all facts. These are real witnesses that were right there.
Aubrey Reich has a new book that's coming out. It was written with Colin McSween, who is from Canada. And Colin worked with him for several years to get this beautiful book out, and it will be released also at the conference. And these are things that can be ordered online at jfklancer.com. You can see the new books, and of course you can also order Larry Hancock book, Williams Law's book. Ian Griggs, who is from England and will be speaking at the conference, will be there. And, of course, you can get my forensic DVD so you can have a better understanding about the trajectory analysis that we've talked about.
Which is incredible work. I'm just absolutely astounded. We are speaking with Sherry Fiester right now, and she is a senior crime scene investigator on the phone live from Dallas, where all this took place in 1963, 45 years ago. November 22nd, the world changed. It was tantamount, folks, to 9/11. Those of you that are alive right now going to university and you remember 9/11, you remember where you were. Picture that 45 years ago with JFK, the same thing. There was a commission right after called the Warren Commission. They did an investigation, came out with, they felt that it was Oswald, acted alone. The conspiracy and the cover-up has been going on ever since, despite people like yourself, Sherry, who have done this incredible research. I must say, Larry's work too, Larry Hancock, on all the people that knew about the conspiracy prior to the conspiracy. It's just astounding.
It really is.
I was going to mention also in our pre-production meeting the other night, you had mentioned somebody that showed up at your door that even gave you greater validation for your research and your findings. I was wondering if you recall that conversation and if you would like to talk about that.
I certainly would. I mentioned that I had retired from police work and was living in Lexington, Kentucky, and was looking for something to do and started looking at trajectory. That's, basically some years after I did the bloodstain pattern analysis. And my husband had made friends and worked with a man who was retired as a military sniper. And he was at our home one evening and had no idea what my background was. As far as he was concerned, I was a housewife. And so he started talking about his life as a sniper because, that was his life work. Mm-hmm. And so I told him, what if I would want to kill someone? What if I wanted to shoot? But I want to blame it on somebody else. I don't want for them to be constantly looking for me. I want to make sure somebody else gets the blame for it. He said, well, if you're going to kill someone, if you're going to shoot them, and you want to blame it on someone else, he said, you're going to have to make some plans about, when is the person accessible? And I said, I know I can do it outside because I have a place where I know that they will be and they'll be outside. And so he said, well, you would probably need 3 people. And so you would put one person think of it as a triangle, he said. You'd put one person at each point. One point would be you shooting the person. Then one point would be the person you want to blame. And then another point would be the distraction. Because when you are a sniper, he said there are 4 really important things that you have to remember. You have to do one shot, one kill. That's what he said. He said you need to know that you can do the job. You need to know that there's concealment or some way that you are not going to be noticed, that people are not going to see you. You have to be able to get away. And the way that you can do that is you have someone that creates a distraction. Everybody looks that way, and then you shoot, and they don't see you. Or, you can either use a silencer. In the midst of explaining all of this to me, he suddenly stops and looks at me and says, you're talking about the Kennedy assassination, aren't you?
Oh, man.
I was shocked.
Yeah.
Because he had been doing all the talking, not me. And suddenly he said that, and I was, how did you know? He said, we talk. We talk. That's the only thing he said. Never said another thing about it. Wouldn't discuss anymore with me. I was just got chills from it. Yes. I mean, it was just so weird. Well, years later, I had an opportunity to speak with Craig Roberts. Craig Roberts wrote One Shot, One Kill book. The book. He was also a sniper. And, of course, he's done a lot of other things, and one of the things that he's done is come to the conferences. He's been to several of them and spoken there. Well, at the last time I spoke, Craig was not speaking. He was actually in another room, and his wife came to hear me speak. And I did the trajectory analysis. And she went back and she said, Craig, you have to listen to what this girl is saying because everybody's up in arms, She's like, it's like the Holy Grail is being sit on. It's not the Grassy Knoll. It was terrible. People were like, she just can't be right. She can't be right.
Sacrilege, yeah.
Yes. So he came to me, and I was so excited because I had planned a tour of the jail where Oswald had been, and I had never been there, and I wanted to go and sit in that jail. I just wanted to see, everything. I wanted to see the spot where Ruby shot him, and so at the conference, there's opportunity to do that. It's closed to the public now, but through the conference, you can do it.
There you go, folks.
So I was excited about doing that. And then Craig Roberts, who I am like in awe of, comes up to me and says, would you like to go to DEALEY PLAZA with me? And I'm like, absolutely.
Twist my arm.
Oh, absolutely. So we go to DEALEY PLAZA, and he walks on the other side. He walks around, and he looks, and my sister Deborah and a few other people are with us, because obviously he's, a pretty big name, and people are in awe, and so they're like following him like groupies. And he walks around, and he stops at this particular point. Now, Deborah and I had done the same thing with a small group of people a few weeks before.
Okay.
And while we were there, I stopped at a point and said, this is where I think the shooter was locating, based upon my trajectory analysis. And I'm taking pictures to put in my presentation.
Okay.
Craig Roberts stops at the exact same spot, turns and says, if I were going to do it, this is where I would have been.
Oh, man.
And Deborah and I look at each other, and it's like, wow. She finally believes me.
And this is a professional sniper.
Me. Yeah, she did believe me. But it was just so nice to have him validate that, that same spot. So, in what was really good about that was that experience coincided with my analysis, because experience is important.
Absolutely.
Experience says it's a doable shot. It's doable, and this is the best place. Well, if it was the best place for him then, it was probably the best place for the shooter in 1963.
Very good point, and wow. We're going to have to wrap up now. Sherry, I want to thank you profoundly. I mean, you've blown me away, and I'm sure you've blown my listeners away. Your research is impeccable. Your science is impeccable, and just phenomenal work. I have to congratulate you so much, and I want to thank you very much for coming on the show, and I shall be in touch very soon. Thanks again, Sherry.
Well, thank you. I have enjoyed it very much.
Thank you so much. Tonight we found out that there was indeed a frontal shot, and it did not come from the Grassy Knoll. I want to say, to continue your research, please go to jfklancer.com. That's it for me. Thanks so much for listening. You've been listening to Night Fright. I'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Sherry.